All right, so I have with me today George Fowler. George is a trainer for ICEFT, EFT, and is the president for the New York Center for EFT. Welcome, George.
Oi, Debbie. Oi, the Brazil community. Brazil, hello, I miss you all.
Yes. George was with us in Brazil last year, I think October, doing a core skills 3 and 4, and we had a really great time. And he loved the Brazilian dance there.
And the Brazilian food and a lot of Brazilian things I love there.
Yes.
Great place.
Yeah, right. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about working with escalated couples, and in particular about now in this situation where a lot of us are having to do telehealth, how that impacts how we work with couples. And so, so George, you have kind of an acronym that you use to help us remember some of the basics of working with escalated couples.
Yes.
Can you go over that with us?
The acronym is TERRA, right?
This is terrifying.
It's how the therapist is going to keep control of the session and their focus. So
yeah.
TERRA, T-E-R-R-O-R.
Yeah.
And the T is really probably the most important. If people just listen and do more of this, even online, T is take control. It's our job to create safety in session. And one of the biggest things we do as EFT therapists, mistakes, is we want to be so polite and we want to listen to people. So we let them talk to each other. But if two people are really defensive and want to be heard and they're both speaking to each other, they can't hear each other.
Right.
So one of the easiest things to do is to stop two people from talking to each other and get them to talk through to the therapist, right? That's going to already, so if you want to talk to your partner and I'm going to say, Debbie, whoa, hold on, I need you to talk to me. I do the same thing. I want my partner to hear me. Your partner wants you to hear him, and you two are going to keep going, and we're going to get lost here, right? So I really need you to talk to me. I want my couples talking to each other when the talking leads to success. Yeah. Right? If the talking leads to more reactivity, I need to stop it and have it all go through me. That creates a lot of safety.
Yeah.
That's the T. The E is you want to explain why you're getting them to talk to you. Nobody wants to be told what to do, especially when they're in an agitated space. But I want to get their buy-in. This is a collaborative approach to say, I will not be able to help you if you're both yelling at each other. Right? What I really need you to do is both of you have good reasons, and I want to understand both of them, but I can't do it simultaneously. Who wants to go first? I'm getting them to talk to me to make this decision. I want to tell them both of them will get their chance, right? They have equally important things to do. They have different versions of the same events. I need both sides of the story, right? But I can't do it simultaneously. That explanation also builds a lot of safety in the session.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And
in all of that, you're just making it overt, right? Telling the couples what you're doing and why, and then validating what they're doing, the good reasons they have for it, but also making overt what you need from them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then R is for restrain interruptions. Right? We need to have a plan. Even though both people say yes, one person has to start talking. The other one's going to say, wait, that didn't happen that way. What are you talking about? And they're going to jump in. You got to have a plan for those jump-ins. You just can't get surprised by them all the time. Right? So we really want to be able to say, yes, I can see you're telling me something important. I'm writing it down. We're going to get back to that. Thank you for sharing it. Back to work. I want to keep my focus. I want to close, validate, and honor the person jumping in, but I don't want to switch my focus. I can't be working with both people simultaneously.
Yes.
If I do want to shift my focus, I want to say something to the other person I'm leaving. Well, you know what? Your partner's, a lot's coming up for them. I see them crying. I really want to understand. Would it be okay if we do that for a couple of minutes? I promise I'll get back to you. Right? Really clear about the moves, our intentions, why we're doing what we're doing, getting that collaboration from them.
Yes, absolutely.
Then the second R is for regulating affect. It's so important. Probably the most common thing I see with escalated couples, mistakes that therapists make, is they go too soft, too slow. When somebody's saying, I hate you, you never listen, I don't know if I want to be married anymore. And I say, oh, that must be so lonely. Like I'm way too far away from them. Right. So I really want to be intentional with raising my energy a little bit. It's a lot easier for me to match that energy. And that doesn't mean I'm screaming, but I'm just saying, yeah, Debbie, I can see you're frustrated. right? So you're so frustrated, you question why you're even here. You
Yeah.
just keep trying and trying, and you keep finding yourself back in this place.
Mhm.
Woo! I get you're frustrated,
Yeah.
right? That energy is really important to kind of starting to calm it down.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
The O is to really organize the function of a secondary emotion. Most therapists want to just get the primary, the vulnerability, that they don't see the value. They say, yeah, I get you're angry, but let's get to the good stuff. No, let's help people understand what their anger is, right? Is their anger their hope? Is it their protest? Is it their sense that, somebody will listen to them and see them? Why is somebody going away? Right? What is that going away doing? Is that giving them safety? Is it making them feel like they can reset? We really want to understand the function of the protection
Mhm.
before we just bypass it. Step 2 in EFT is understanding the function of something, right?
Mm.
Of the defenses. Step 3 is getting to the vulnerability. It's not going to the vulnerability first, right? We have to organize that secondary emotion. Critical with
Yeah.
escalated couples. And
Yes.
then the R is just restoring that safety through this process, right? You can look for markers that tell that people are safer and calmer when you can see them settling down and not needing to protest as much.
Yeah, absolutely. And George, I love how you say, because I think that's missed so often, that part of getting the function of the secondary or the protective emotion, right? And we often skip that. I think especially when we're thinking tango, right? As we
Mm-hmm.
go to a symbol emotion, a lot of us assume, well, that's the vulnerable emotion. And that's not necessarily the case.
That's exactly right. So important to say that you want to do the tango or the tempo, right, with the secondary emotion,
Mhm.
because that's the emotion that the couple is spending most of their time with, and they don't even understand why they're doing it, right?
Yeah.
They really need to understand what their anger is about. They really need to know what their avoidance is about.
Yeah.
Right? And that organization allows the couple to take it less personal, right? The action tendency is these more reactive protective moves. If we're trying to avoid all of that, we're avoiding exactly what we need to unite this couple against the negative cycle.
Yeah. Well, and that takes me into, George, what happens if in our best attempts using our own protection strategies, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to de-escalate a couple or deal with the intensity in the room by avoiding it, right? What tends to happen?
The couple stays escalated.
Yeah, right.
Right. It's the process telling you, that's the beauty of escalation. It's the process telling us where the couple needs us.
Yeah.
Right. It's great. A lot of therapists try to bypass it. And even if you get the couple to have new conversations that feel vulnerable and safe, that feels great. What happens to those couples is they go home and they still don't understand their defenses. They get triggered, they kick back right back in, and then the couple doesn't really have help. And then they come back in and we start to get discouraged, like EFT is not working. Look, this couple is, they're back in the cycle again. Yeah, they're back in the cycle because they really don't understand the cycle. To
Yeah.
understand the cycle, you gotta really make explicit the function of the protection.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it is so tempting, right? Because the vulnerable emotion is so beautiful and those moments are so beautiful. And so it's so tempting and we can even have those sessions where they go into the vulnerability and respond to each other. But then the next session they come back and they're super escalated and it can be so disorienting. But
And that's the beauty, yes, when a couple comes back and they're in their escalation, they're giving us live emotion to work with. They're
yeah.
giving us the blocks, the very mistrust that stop these conversations. It's just the therapist needs help being trained how to lean into that, to say, yes, so Debbie, here you are, right back in this angry place. Help me understand how you got there. Help me understand what your anger is trying to do. Help me really help you get clearer about your truth.
Yeah, right, right. And that's so validating for the clients too, to know that we want to be there for them in their escalated emotions too, right? In those
And
places.
how different would it be if instead I said, Debbie, really? You're back in this place again?
Right,
I mean,
right.
don't you know the anger doesn't work? We've talked
Yeah,
about this. The anger makes your partner go away, and yet you're right back in that angry place, right? I'm just going to explain to you what you're doing is wrong. And even if you try to agree with me, you're just going to hide this part of you. That
yeah.
is so important to really understand what it is.
Oh, yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, yeah. And so what would you say, George, are some of the differences in working with escalated couples in person versus working with them online.
Oof, yeah. I mean, I'm getting a lot of, like the rest of us with COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
I'm seeing all my couples online right now. And, I think like anything else, it has some positives and some negatives. I mean, for the most part, it's harder to read the nonverbals,
Mm.
right? It's harder to see their faces. It's harder to see their body language. It's harder to know like what I'm supposed to do. Give you an example. I just worked with a couple first time, and it was a pretty good session. They were arguing, but I helped them understand their cycle. They felt really responded to, and I was just seeing their faces and their hands when it would come up. And at the end of it, I said, well, is there anything else you think I would need to know that would be helpful? And the husband goes, yeah. And he turns the camera. He's totally paralyzed from the chest down. I did a
Oh,
whole session having
wow.
no idea that this man was paralyzed. You think that influences what's happening? Yeah, a little bit. Right.
Right.
But I totally didn't see it.
You
Right. So I
can't
didn't
see
see it.
it.
I had no idea what was happening. So I'm
Right.
always reminding myself, I need to kind of get different vantage points. I need to get more creative online, because what I'm missing, it's also harder
Mhm.
because you're missing nonverbals. You got to work a little bit.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is people are having these conversations in their house.
Yeah.
Right. I think the hardest challenge for a lot of couples is taking what happens in the therapy room and bringing it home. And
Yeah.
yet here they are in their home having these conversations. I think it does make it a little bit easier for them to continue to have some of these conversations without the therapist.
Yeah, that's true, because it doesn't feel quite so foreign. It's
Yeah,
already in their home. They're in their normal context having these conversations.
exactly. They're developing that muscle memory. They don't even realize that they're doing it.
Mm.
Right. Their bodies are remembering, wait, I'm in my bedroom right now and we're talking about this. Now all of a sudden I turn off my computer. My body still remembers that because the
Yeah.
environment is similar.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. How about in that, so let's say we're working with a couple and they're yelling at each other and we're doing our best to jump in there and take control, and it's not working, right? Well, normally in session we might touch their leg, or like,
Yeah, right.
any tips for
Exactly.
that?
Yeah, I think I find myself being more creative.
Yeah.
We don't have access to touch or moving a chair or those physical actions that we have. So I think I need to use my voice more, or I find myself clapping a lot. If they're not working, I'll be like, Debbie, hey, hold on. Remember what we
Yeah.
talked about? Oh, hold on, listen to me, right? I need to get their attention, because
Yeah.
if I let them keep going, they're going to co-dysregulate each other. That's going to make
Right.
my work harder. So I
Yeah.
got to get their attention. If that's singing, if it's clapping, if it's yelling, I need to get them to look at me, maybe laugh, shake their head. This guy's crazy, but now they're looking at me. Now I'm getting my control back. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to explain why I'm doing that. I'm
Right.
clapping. Maybe that's annoying. You two really were kind of trying to be understood. But my experience is when people do that and they're already triggered and reactive, things only get worse. The longing is you want to be heard, but literally the parts of your ears that hear start to shut down. And when your partner doesn't feel heard, they escalate, and it's going to be so much harder. So that's why I did that. Can you forgive me for that? Let's get back to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But to really empower people listening, like get creative, because if you just sit back and let them do their thing, it's going to be so much harder to then bring them back into a place of safety.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I hadn't thought about the clapping part. That's a new one for me.
All
And
right.
the singing, there you go.
Singing, well, that's all you, Deb. You could belt out a nice tune, and that would gather their attention. And it is just about gathering their attention. You
Yeah.
got to shock them. I mean, that's what the
Yeah.
touch does. That's what the chair does. You can't just say, hold on. You two, oh, can you listen to me, please? Can someone
Yeah.
listen? Because they're just
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
going to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're in their protection, they're in their kind of emergency response already. And so kind of shocking them
Exactly.
out of it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's good. All right. Well, and so, one of the things we talk a lot about with escalated couples is just the importance of matching, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're talking about matching the really highly, the loud emotion, right? The loud,
Yep.
intense emotion. But there's also the escalation of maybe one person is really loud and the other person is just completely shut down, right?
Silent, right?
Yeah, silent. And so, considering that it is harder to read the nonverbals online, what have you noticed about engaging kind of that silent partner that maybe is a bit more withdrawn and isn't responding online? Have you found there to be a difference there?
Yeah, again, once you calm down the really reactive person, you have to give yourself that space, right? But the engagement to the person who doesn't have words, I want them to have success with not having words
Yeah.
instead of pushing too fast. I really want to, and instead of asking just too many questions, like, what's it like? What are you feeling? What are you doing? And they don't really have a lot of words. It's helpful to focus on more of conjectures and validation. So I might say, hey, Debbie, yeah, I would imagine sitting here saying nothing might be a safer option. Because if you say the wrong thing, it's only going to make things worse. So why give more evidence that's going to be used against you? So does that feel like, and my experience working with a lot of withdrawers, it's actually sitting back with no words feels safer, right? There's more control. There's ability to kind of think about things before you say it. I mean, so help me out here, Debbie, as you have no words. Do you think that works for you? Because it's making sense to me. What do you think?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so really validating and making sense of that silence too, right? Instead of, again, just like we don't want to pressure the person who is super angry and escalated to not be angry, right?
Yeah.
The same of not pressuring the person who's silent. We'll just talk more. If you would just talk, your partner would
Help them understand the good reasons they're not talking.
Yeah.
Don't just push them to talk.
Right.
Help them get curious about why they're not talking. It is serving a purpose at some level. I want to connect with that first before I force them or push them to fix them or do something else to get them to engage.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so good. And that's so honoring of the client, right? So honoring. We're not saying you just need to do this differently and ignoring all the good things, all the good reasons that have led them to do what they do. Right? So honoring. Well, as we begin to wrap up, George, is there any last thoughts or anything we haven't talked about that you say, this is really important when working with escalated couples or online work?
I just think, the Brazilian community has such great energy.
Yeah.
And so often the training is forcing therapists to be this quiet, soft person. And I just want to empower you all to have range, to allow yourself to listen to that energy and, to use that more in session, to come alongside people who are angry or defensive or frustrated or don't have words, and just get curious about, like, what are they doing? These blocks are not, things that they're doing to get away from vulnerability. They're not doing it to make your job harder. They're doing it because that's where they need you to go. These blocks are not stop signs. They're just detour signs, right? They're saying, can you help me here? Help me find why I'm angry, why I'm going away. And when they have success with that, why would they not want to engage more? We don't have to sell EFT or talk them into it. We just have to give them success in the moment with what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Which that's a wonderful segue to. You have a new project called Success and Vulnerability, and you talk a lot about
.com.
Yeah.
.com. Yes, it's so exciting. I've never had. I train all over the world. I haven't had time to do anything online.
Yeah.
And now with COVID, I've had a couple of months, and I put together with a team this website that's really hands-on, trying to get therapists to lean into anger, reactivity, blocks, defensiveness. How do we get teaching and training? I didn't get trained to run towards a fire as a firefighter. Right? I didn't grow up learning. I mean, someone had to show me how to do that. Same thing with us as therapists. We need people to show us how to do this.
Yes, absolutely. And so if you want to check out George's new project, it's successandvulnerability.com. And I believe they're looking at translating some of those materials as well.
Yes, that would be so helpful.
Yes, yeah. And so please check that out. And George, thank you so much for being with us today and giving your time to the Brazilian community. We really appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Debbie, for your service too with the Brazilian community. I know how special they are in your hearts, and we're all in this together. So it's a beautiful thing.
All right. Well,
all right.
Ciao.
Ciao. I got ciao. Boy and ciao. All right. I like this.
All right. Thanks, George.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.